Hello, people. Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast. My name is Andy Dowling. I am the host of this show. I also play bass in the Australian heavy metal band Lord, and if you love a bit of heavy metal, you can go to lord.net.au. Tim's whipped up this amazing website, in my biased opinion. It's pretty shit hot, to be honest, where you've got video clips, streaming playlists, our whole back catalogue's there. Our online store is there as well. There's a lot of historical information about the band if you want to get a bit of an understanding of what we're all about. You can go to lord.net.au and give our music a crack. If you love it, let me know. And if you don't, let me know anyway. Why not? Any news is good news. So go and check that out, lord.net.au. Come on, Andy, move it along. In addition to playing in a metal band, I also host the Self-Starter Podcast, which is all about small business, self-employment, and freelancing. So if you or you know somebody who is working a job that they absolutely hate and they want to do something more with their life, or maybe somebody that's about to start their own business or has their own business, or maybe just earns a bit of pocket money on the side or wants to earn some extra coin, check out Self-Starter. You go to selfstarter.com.au. The podcast comes out fortnightly. There's a blog there as well. Lots of information and a lot of great stories and inspiration for people that want to, I guess, earn some extra money doing something that they love to do. And there's a number of different ways. There's an infinite number of ways that you can do it. And Self-Starter is just a little bit of a glimpse into that world. And it's been doing great things for a lot of people. And a lot of people have been giving me really positive feedback about it. And I've got a lot out of it myself. So stop waffling, Andy. Come on. Go to check out selfstarter.com.au and hope you enjoy it. This week's shout out. Each and every week, I thank somebody that supports me and the podcast or the band or whatever the hell I'm into or involved with. And it can be arranged in different ways. It could be just a message of encouragement or sharing a post, a bit of social media love. It could be recommending a guest. It could be shouting me a beer via the PayPal button over at andysocial.net. You could be buying some merchandise like a t-shirt or a patch or the USB pass, which has the first 100 episodes of the Antisocial Podcast. Plug. It could be anything. Little 1% extras go a long way, and it means a hell of a lot to me. And the least that I could do is say thank you. And I pick somebody each and every week to put on public record and say thank you and send something out in the post as well. So this week's shout out is for Haley Johnson. Now, Haley is from Bendigo. Had to look for that one. Haley actually, out of the blue, sent me a little beer shout via the PayPal button over at andysocial.net. I won't say how much, but it was very, very generous. And I must say thank you so much, Haley. I really appreciate it. There's a nice little message attached to it, just thanking me for the content that I'm putting out there and just really enjoying the podcast. So thank you so much, Haley. Really, really appreciate the support. When you hear this, please send me a message and I'm going to flick out some stuff in the post to you just as a little thank you, because we all like getting something in the post. So thank you, Haley. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else that continues to support the podcast in a whole range of different ways. All right, moving along. This week's episode is with Trina Collins. Now, the name might ring a bell for anybody that's been listening to my Self-Starter podcast, because Trina was a guest on that show on episode 25. And I had such a great time talking to Trina on that episode that I thought I'd do a round two. And I think there's a lot of things that we didn't get to cover that would be really, really cool for an Antisocial episode. So here we are. But Trina is a musician. She's been drumming for the past 25 years. She's a big part of the Wollongong music scene. She's an artist and creates work under the name Poncho Army. She's got her own art studio in Wollongong called Anchors Away Art Studio. Some really, really cool stuff that she does. She's really, really talented. I caught up with her at her studio in Wollongong and we just sat down and shot the shit for an hour. And it was really, really cool to learn a little bit more about Trina's story, where she's from, building her business and her art, and we just went off on a whole range of different tangents. So as always, with these typical antisocial episodes, we go off in a whole range of different directions, but it was a really, really fun chat. I just absolutely love talking to Trina. If you want to learn more about Trina, you can go to ponchoarmy.com or anchorsawayartstudio.com. I'll put all the links and resources in the show notes over at andysocial.net. I'll put some photos of some of Trina's artwork in there as well, so you can check that out. But you can just check the links through the podcast player that you're listening through right now as well. So enough waffling on from me. Please enjoy this really, really cool chat with Trina Collins.
I had a studio prior to this, which was more of an open plan warehouse, and I kept wanting to divide parts of it off.
Yeah.
So things would be a bit separate, especially when you've got like kids coming in to do workshops and they get paint on their hands and then they want to run around and touch everything. So to be able to divide my art stuff and the screen printing stuff for clients away from what the kids are doing is great, and have a separate shop space. So when I found this place, it was just like, like this is perfect. Like there was a few bits and pieces I had to do, a few like dark rooms and stuff to build out the back. But yeah, I looked at the space and straight away I kind of knew where everything was going to go. And yeah, it was just one of those perfect finds.
It's cool. And I know you mentioned before you started recording, you've done a bit of work fixing up little parts. And you mentioned just before, like the dark rooms in the back. Was that just mates getting together and helping out and just making it happen?
Definitely. I was in a band actually with my mate Neil, and he's an amazing drummer, but he wanted to play guitar. So I played drums. We were called Handlebar. And he was also a cabinet builder.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so he got all offcuts and everything that were left over from his work, and he'd bring them over here. And yeah, he actually was in the back shed building me the dark rooms, and it was a 45-degree day. And I'm like, Neil, do you really want to do this today? And he's like, I've got gigs on, because he was playing in about 7 bands at this point. He was unstoppable. And he was like, I've got to go on tour tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I want to get it done. And I'm like, do you want me to go and get you like some beer? And he's like, he doesn't really drink that much. He's like, yeah, get me a 6-pack of Old. I'm like, yeah, you need a beer at least today, mate. So yeah, he was a legend. He really done heaps for me, and he built all the spray paint shelves for me in the shop as well with his good old carpentry skills. So they're all custom built shelves in there. And yeah, just friends helped me move. My brother came up with his trailer because he's a landscaper down in Narraway, down Shellhaven. And so he brought his trailer up, and his daughter, and they helped me move everything. So yeah. That's
cool. I mean, that's one thing that I've always sort of looked at when people start to lease out a space, and then you think about how much you're allowed to mess with it, with an area, but then how much potentially you've got to put into it to get it up to, you know, a state that, or a standard that you need to be able to function in. So I'm always curious to see like how people do it. I mean, I know just when we did the last podcast, and you're talking about just saving your money and just like not taking out loans and things like that. Yeah. You've got this real DIY approach, so that obviously makes sense, where you've got mates coming in and family to help you make it happen. Yeah,
it really helps because removalists cost a fair bit, and everything can add up. And yeah, just bits and pieces that you still have to get. Like I installed bifold doors on the front, so people can see if the shop's open or closed, if the roller door's down or closed, if it's up, and people can see the bifolds, they know we're open. And having that sort of the space, what you just sort of mentioned, like what you can do with the space. I find like having a longer lease means that you can start to really invest into the space. So I previously had like month-to-month leases, or even year leases I'd done as well. But there's only so much money you want to invest in that space, because you don't know if you're going to be there the next month or even 12 months. And I probably, if I only had a 1-year lease, I probably wouldn't have gone out and spent $3,000 on a bifold door to install.
That's right. They're not cheap. I mean, it looks cool. And I mean, I've been weighing up installing one of them at my own house. Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can spend the money, but it just adds a little bit to it. Mm-hmm. And as you said before, like we were talking earlier, if somebody wants to come past, they don't have to like awkwardly park and walk down and then realize, you're closed. They can just drive past, slow down, and see straight down the driveway whether you're open or closed.
And the last place I had as well, it was because it was the big sort of classic warehouse. We just had the roller door.
Yep.
And so in winter, you had to have the roller door up, but there was no glass door. It was like freezing, the wind would come in, and you're trying to do art and it's just blowing paper everywhere. It was impossible to keep the place clean. Like dust was forever coming in. Like this is Wollongong, we're pretty close to BHP, and
you get all sorts of things in the air.
Yeah, and I used to have, actually in the old space, the kids were freezing in winter. So I got one of those big gas heaters. But it kind of looks like a bit of a cannon, and it just blows
Oh,
like
yeah.
a gas fireball out pretty much, and all the kids would like huddle around. I'm like, don't get too close. But yeah, in here it's really easy to keep the place warm and cozy or cool in summer. So yeah.
It's a great setup. I mean, one thing that I've always struggled with is whenever I get that spark of creativity or just really like feeling productive and wanting to get my hands into something and just get moving, to be able to go from that to actually physically going into the motion of doing it can be a real challenge, because, you know, if you're in a space that doesn't allow that, you have to sort of create the space first, set up, get everything going, and by the time you get to that point, if you actually go ahead with doing and making that decision to start setting up, you can lose a lot of that momentum. So when I look around here, you can just move around. You've got everything at your fingertips from what I can see anyway. It definitely would help you just get stuff done. You're not distracted by the task of having to set things up. You've got everything at your fingertips, so it's cool.
Yeah, like on Wednesday and Thursdays here, I teach the kids, like so the kids' workshops come in, and like on those days, I know I still have to set up the workshop area because it is a double function space. So it's also the area where I sort out t-shirts and do folding and size sorting and everything for the screen printing. I'm usually in here doing my graphic design stuff on this big table as well. And just like sometimes I might be painting, but on Wednesday and Thursdays, I know I really have to start setting up for the workshops at around 1 o'clock. So I'm not going to get into a big project in this space.
Yeah.
So like big screen printing jobs are usually Monday, Tuesday or Fridays. Like graphic design I can usually do on Wednesday or Thursday mornings because it's not taking up too much space. So there's a little bit I still have to juggle space-wise, but yeah, compared to previous spaces, it's so much better.
You've got a routine though, so at least you know like particular days of the week are reserved for particular things. So you can create momentum over a longer period of time instead of just like, I've got this spark now randomly and I've got to try and go from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
You already know ahead of what your week's going to look like, so you can plan ahead. So
sure.
it makes a big difference.
And like, I think my favorite part of the space is actually the music room, the soundproof music room. Because if I get stressed out or I just need that creative break, I can just go and bash the drums straight away. I don't have to spend an hour setting up the kit, getting it out of cases. And by the time you do all that, you usually can't just go and bash your kit. You got to do something else. So I can just go in for 10 minutes, de-stress, come back out.
That's the best example of like having to set up. I mean, I've never been a drummer.
Yeah.
But playing in bands and understanding how much of a pain in the arse it is having a drummer in the band.
You've seen how long it takes the drummer to unpack, and you're in a metal band.
I know.
So how many toms does your drummer have to set up the cymbals?
I used to get so frustrated that I forced myself to actually learn how to set up a drum kit so I could like help the drummer along to make sure that he sets up quick enough, because I shouldn't like smear all
you are a rare musician.
Well, I won't smear every drummer that I've ever played with, but some of them tend to like just go at their own pace, and so they like to just slowly get everything together. And sometimes you just don't have time on your side, especially if you've got a set changeover or something like that at a gig, and you're just looking around. And everybody else is plugged in, they're tuned, they're ready to go, and then you got the drummer who's just slowly just setting things up, and you're like, no, I've got to move this along. But
you're a bass player, aren't you?
Yeah, so it's easy, I've got less strings, just plug me in.
But bass players are always nice. And in my experience of every band I've been in, if someone's going to help me, it's always been the bass player. You will never get the singer helping set up the drum kit. And sometimes the rhythm guitarist might lend a hand, but they're usually kind of like, I don't really know like how to do this. Like, how do I put this cymbal stand together? Lead guitarist, very much like the singer. Like, no, I want to go drink beer and relax, and
I think I don't know if it's
very stereotypical.
It is very stereotypical, but there is. I mean, look, sometimes stereotypes are there because there's a little bit of truth behind them, and at least I know. For me, like, I played guitar, but then I went to bass because everybody was a guitarist and everybody needed a bass player, and I was so desperate to play in a band. So I thought, stuff it, I'm going to go to bass. But I've always I've always done all the extra stuff because I've compensated for the lack of my role as a bass player in the band. So
bass players hold it together. They're the glue.
They do in some cases. But I mean, like for me, it's just like my job. I feel like my job at times is limited. So I think, you know, like a lead guitarist, the skill level is very different and the vocalist is very different, even the drummer. But for me, it's sort of like, I come in, I do my thing, and it's like, okay, that's it. And then I think, what else can I do here? So I always feel, at least in the back of my head, that I've got to add more. So that's why, at least in our band, I've been like the tour manager, the booker, the marketing guy, the merch guy, and whatever else. I can't sit still anyway. And so for me, I'm looking around for things that I can do. I hate to be standing there with my hands in my pockets. So
I used to do that for all the bands that I played in as well. I'd book the shows, I'd make the posters, all the album cover artwork, organise T-shirt printing, all of that stuff. I used to like actually ring up places to get gigs and pretend I wasn't in the band, that I was like a manager to make us look more professional.
I still do that.
Yeah. All the tricks. So
we had a fake name that we created. It was like this alter ego. It was a few different names, but one of them was Brad Kevin, because we used to have this running joke that you could never trust somebody with two first names. So Brad Kevin was just this name that we had, and so there was a few times there where I'd email these people just trying to, like, for support spots or something like that, where you wanted to look like you were bigger than what you were. And then so you had like a management company or something like that. It was just us. And so I would sign it off with like Brad Kevin or something like that, just to make it look like there was somebody representing the band when it was really just us there.
Makes me think of the guy who had Zen Studios up at St. Peter's. He was Alan Scott, and everyone would call him Scott Allen. He's like, no, it's Alan Scott.
I love it.
That was actually his real name. It wasn't a fake one.
I know. I've got a few mates with two first names, so I always hate shit on them. But I don't know where that came from. But we picked that up and ran with it. So it was like, we can never trust somebody with two first names. So but all that makes sense from your end. Like, given everything that you do, and you're so, at least from the outside, it looks like you're so DIY. Having that as a musician, it sort of makes sense that that's sort of it's flowed over to this as well.
Yeah, I just like doing things myself. If I can do them, I definitely know there's things I can't do. So like, I don't like doing accounts, so I hire a bookkeeper.
That's smart.
To do my accounts, because it literally just gives me a headache and makes me depressed. Every quarter when I have to do my BAS, I just put stuff in a box. I don't know if you've ever watched Black Books, but when my friends laugh at me because they think I'm like Bernard with his coat and his like receipts attached in his coat, and then like he's got the big boxes and so I give my boxes of receipts to my bookkeeper Trina, who is amazing and does stuff. She's actually now talking about maybe I can just paint a mural in her house to pay for doing
that. It's a bit of a barter system.
Bit of a barter system going on. And I think I'm the only client that she's kept, because she knows, she believes in what I'm doing here at the studio, and she's sort of getting out of doing that kind of work, but she's like, I want to keep doing it for you, because she loves the studio and the space. And
that's one of the hardest things and I'm going through this at the moment, because like I've still got, you know, the sort of traditional job, and I've got all the extra things that I do, and things earn money on the side and everything. But for me, it's like that bookkeeping aspect. I'm exactly the same as you. I glaze over, and I borderline get to a point where I get angry because I don't have that ability. I don't have the patience to sit down, and I don't have the attention span, at least from my end, to be able to sit there and collate things and work it all out. I'd rather be spending that time doing something else. And so I'm trying to get to that point now where I'm thinking I need to get somebody and do something very similar. Like, because I've got bags, like plastic bags and boxes full of receipts, and I just dump things in as I spend money. I get the receipt, chuck it in there, and then when it gets to the end of the financial year, I look at it and I want to cry, because I'm like, I don't know where to start. So that's smart that you just gone.
It's kind of like hoarding. It just gets too much, and you have to get someone in to help you deal with that problem.
Do you do that? Do you give the receipts just in one hit at the end of the financial year, or do
No,
you sort
I have
of
to do it in quarters because
Yeah.
I'm over that threshold.
Yep.
Yeah, but the problem is it's not based on your profit. It's based on your, is it gross, net? Which one is it?
The gross before your expenses come out?
Yeah, before your expenses come
Yeah.
out. So because I have so many expenses here because of the like rent and public liability and everything, at the end of the day, I don't really make very much profit. And then like what I do make profit, it's like the tax agent takes, like this last quarter, it was 40%
Yeah.
of my profit. And I'm like, that's like nothing left, hardly. Like when you just like divide that over 3 months of what you actually have left, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm making $5 an hour here. What's going on? So it's depressing, the doing it quarterly.
But at least I'd assume that by sort of breaking it up a little bit, it's probably less stressful than.
Yeah,
I mean, you
than
have to
one
do it that
big
way.
hit.
But
Yeah.
if you, I know a lot of people that sort of just it's once a year and they leave
Yeah.
it right until the end of October and then stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get in when I first started Anchors Away. I
Yeah.
didn't do my tax. I think it was 3 years, and the year before that I hadn't done it either because I was just doing a residency, so I had no income coming in.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I had to go and do that, I was so worried. But then I got money back because I had lost money. So they're like, oh, you actually get money back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been so scared for 4 years and you're telling me I get money back. This is awesome.
I want to lose money all the time.
Yeah, but every year after that, I've had to pay money. So I haven't got anything back since then.
Do you sort of preempt that now and just try and keep money aside, knowing that more than likely you're going to have to pay something?
Yeah, I do. Like, I'm mindful of it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like if rent has to be paid and you've got to get that money from somewhere, it usually comes out of that bit that you've been putting away. And it's just like, well, I'll deal with paying the BAS, the ATO thing when that comes up. But it's always just sort of it's that rolling on thing where I just seem to get enough money to pay every bill, or I'm just getting ahead and then some big bill comes in. It's like, dang, I was just getting ahead and now $1,000 bill for something's coming, or, you know.
I mean, as I said before, like once everything's been taken out and the tax has been taken out and you sort of think, oh, is this all I'm making? I mean, when you look around and you see what you've achieved and what you've got so far, and you've got people coming in and you're doing these workshops and these jobs for bands and different people, I mean, it's obviously worth it because you're here and you're still doing it.
Yeah, that's what my bookkeeper keeps telling me. She's like, Trine, at the end of the day, you might not have that much, like, for your payment, but your phone's getting paid, your car's getting paid. Look at the space you have. Like, this is your work environment. Like, how many people have a drum kit in their office and can bring a dog to work? And I haven't lost my dog last year, but I'm going to get a new one soon. And I love knowing that, okay, I can do that. I haven't paid myself super in the last 5 years. I will hopefully get onto doing. Yeah, that's the next one. I got to start paying super. But yeah, I am very lucky, and I live, I have to be mindful of things that I spend money on, but I'm not without either. Like, I'm not homeless. I am lucky. I own a house. I just said that really weird. I own a house, and I've got a car and I can get around, and I always have clothes because, I always have misprinted T-shirts. So I've got, a great pile of clothes as long as they're smalls. Misprint the small shirts.
That's the way.
A new one for the closet, So I'm never without clothes. And like me and my friends, we're all into permaculture and we garden, and I deal a lot with different restaurants and bars as well. So, sometimes I can go into a bar and they'll give me free drinks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I think it's funny because everyone sort of, when they don't actually stop and think about what they want in life, everyone sort of goes to the shit tons of money, the big house, multiple things, tangible items. But when it sort of boils down to it, most people just want to do something that they enjoy and not have to worry about sort of finding or doing something that they hate to do to be able to fund the things that they love to do. So for you to be able to do what you love and create revenue that keeps it sustainable and keeps it moving, regardless of the profits on top of it, you're able to maintain something that you enjoy. I mean, whatever the dream is for people of what they want to get out of life. I think, for a lot of people, they'd probably love to have the equivalent of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people look at what I'm doing and go, oh, you're living the dream. I'm like, it's great, but there is a lot of stuff that people don't realize. A lot of people assume I'm sitting in here painting away every day, which isn't.
Just chilling out.
Yeah, just watching telly and getting to paint. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really what the case is.
Yeah.
Like there is, a lot of hard work. There's a lot of having to write applications for mural jobs and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's worth it for me. I have had office jobs, and I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I worked for Fairfax for 10 years. And yeah, like it was a comfortable job, but my heart wasn't in it, and I didn't get excited about things.
Yeah.
And like I don't get excited every day about coming down here, because some things are just jobs that I have to do to make ends meet. But there definitely are days where I'm like, cool, I can't wait to get to the studio today and start working on this, or get out and start painting this mural. And it's those jobs where you got a bit of freedom, or when I'm doing stuff for maybe a gallery exhibition, which is more personal artwork. When I teach the Radical Drum Corps on Thursday nights, that's so much fun, because there's such a great group of people. We're all like same politically minded, and there's people in that who were part of Redback Graphics in the 70s who I absolutely love. Redback Graphics are a huge influence for me, and we're talking about starting on some things together. And it's there's definitely highlights in my week, and every week changes as well what I'm working on, so it's exciting.
It's probably cool, like even on the days that you sort of have to drag yourself in here a little bit and do stuff that does not excite you whatsoever. Probably the difference between that and having like your traditional job that you had in the past is that even the crap stuff, that it's ultimately coming back to you. It's sort of like the energy that you put out is what you're going to get back. Whereas when you're working for a bigger sort of corporate entity, you can still use that same approach, but in a lot of cases you can exert yourself but not equally get that back, because you're benefiting, I guess, other parts of a bigger organization. Whereas if it's your thing, even though you might be doing paperwork or something that's just absolutely soul destroying, it's ultimately coming back for you and for something that you believe in.
Well, when I was at Fairfax, I won them so many Pamper Awards, which is the big Australasia newspaper awards, and just for different things that I worked on. I think the funniest one was the Adult Warehouse series of ads that I'd done that were aimed at the over 55s. So I'd done like a year-long campaign, and I actually went and talked to heaps of people who were in that age bracket and said like their original idea was having women playing bingo and stuff like this, and then sort of having these speeches. I'm like, no, this isn't gonna. You're putting them down. And so I went and talked to a bunch of people in that age bracket and said, well, what do you want to see? Like, and they were like, well, we're fit, we're still having fun. Yeah, we still do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and so I ended up having like 2 men, 2 women, and got a bunch of different photos of mostly down at the beach, and just so the 2 women would be having conversations about their partners, and then, just different scenarios. It was a different one each week. Anyway, won a massive award for it, like best advertising campaign across all Australasia.
Wow. And
at the end of the day, the paper gave me a $500 Quicksilver award, which was a gift card, I think, for like Domain or something.
Oh, right.
But they won like thousands of dollars for this, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not getting.
So thanks, Trina.
Yeah,
appreciate the hard work.
But I won them multiple, like the stuff I'd done for the band comp and everything for them as well. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, why am I putting in all this effort for the CEO probably to get like a massive raise?
Yeah, big bonus.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, and you've got those skills and being able to identify opportunity and especially through advertising as well. And it's marketing in the sense that you've got to create something that people can identify with and engage with. And I mean, that's art, isn't it? I mean, that's you putting something out there that other people, I mean, it's for yourself and, in certain aspects, but you want to put something else, you want to put something out there that people can connect with and understand whatever the message is or whatever you're trying to put out there. So it all sort of links together in a way.
Yeah.
Where does Poncho Army come from?
I get this question so much.
And do you ever refer to yourself as Poncho Army? You say, I am Poncho Army?
Not really. I kind of usually, like when I introduce myself to people, I say, oh, hey, I'm Trina. If it's like in an artist pseudonym, like I'll say artist pseudonym Poncho Army, if it's in a like written bio or something, I have no problem using my name. It's just my website and everything's under Poncho Army. So when I'm credited in galleries and stuff, I usually say, oh, can you change that to Poncho Army?
Branding.
Yeah, if they've used Trina Collins. But yeah, I haven't got, like I'm not having a pseudonym to hide my name. But yeah, for me, I think it's that introverted thing. I just liked having a name that wasn't my personal name for my business. It just sort of took away a little bit. I don't know.
Sometimes that's good because it gives you a bit more freedom to be more flexible in your ideas and like some things are sort of associated with your identity itself, and sometimes a bit of separation is good.
Yeah, and I guess if I just use my name, people would know straight up that I'm a female working in like street art as well. I think Poncho Army gave me a bit more of a leeway of people not knowing.
Did you have challenges like that earlier in the piece before sort of making that decision?
In the street art stuff, definitely, and there still is. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's the same with, I guess, music as well. There's a lot of change happening, but I also kind of feel like the women who have pushed a lot to get acceptance and equal rights in these fields aren't the ones who are getting a lot of notoriety back, because people don't want to deal with the people who are being outspoken. Yeah. So it's a bit
of a too hard basket.
Yeah, it has helped women come up in street art and in music, but yeah, the ones who are getting put on the festivals and everything now aren't necessarily the ones who had to sort of break down.
Some of them out there have had to make the sacrifice for others. Yeah,
and a lot of I've got friends who are a fair bit older than me and have been pushing for a lot longer than me, and they're incredible musicians and no one knows who they are, like outside of the local area. I'm just like, how the hell, like, you've got the best voice, you play guitar like so well, and yeah, we can't get on a lot of the festivals because people see us as outspoken people or people who are going to disrupt the niceties of it's like, that's not the case. We want to get on. We just had to bash a few walls down.
Well, it's something, I mean, as a guy, I think you get quite ignorant to it all because I guess it's an easy run. You take everything for granted, and the only challenges that you have are just the challenges that are just becoming competent enough in your music and learning to play with other people and just typical sort of music and band situations. And so your world is sort of surrounded by those challenges, and you don't really think that there's much more to it. So, and it just comes down to the individual self-awareness and awareness of people around them. But I've certainly been sort of ignorant to a lot of it, and then you start to see, especially in the last few years, it's obviously become a bigger or a more talked about topic sort of in media and things like that. And I think just now the way that everybody can see what everyone's opinion is as well, those topics are certainly raised. It's always been there, but it's certainly more in your face in a good way. But you sort of, I mean, I've certainly felt dirty myself thinking, oh, geez, like I've just never thought about this. I've just gone along with it all and just assumed that this is just the way that it is and there's no issues. And then you think, oh, shit, actually there's quite a few people here that don't even get the luxury of doing what I'm doing. And even having the opportunity to be in a position where they can just focus on the normal challenges that everybody else has of just being a musician.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first started, I didn't notice it as much. I think I really kind of enjoyed that I was different. Like I was a young female drummer. Like I started when I was 11, and it was, I don't want to say like it was a gimmick like for a lot of people, but I didn't realize sort of the prejudice until I got older. And then I sort of would have different managers and stuff, like not managers from the bands that I was in, but who wanted to form all female bands. And it was sort of like they were collecting us to make us a band to sort of become the Runaways sort of thing again, but they wanted us to play covers, which is pretty much what Joan Jett ended up doing anyway. And they were like, oh, you would have to wear this and that. And like, I'm like,
become a product.
Become a product and would style your hair like this. I'm like, what's the music? Like, you're talking about what I'm going to wear. Like, what the hell? And this happened on multiple occasions. And I was just like, I'm not going to come and play drums in your weird put together band. Like it was things like that. And growing up in the 90s as well, I remember festivals like Homebake, they would only have one female band for the entire festival. And we had like 4 or 5 stages in the 90s at Homebake when it was at Domain. And so if Nitocris got put on, which was all female band, Skulker couldn't play, which was another all Sydney band, or even bands like the Mavises. Bands like the Mavises, because they had half female, half male, that was considered female band. Magic Dirt, because they had Ed Leader at the front, female band, even though it was 3 males behind her. And I was like, really? This is one, only got one spot out of 50 bands on. It was crazy.
And it's funny because, I mean, unless you're directly impacted by it, or you're frequenting with other people that are sort of going through those challenges, I shouldn't say it's easy, but you become oblivious to it. And so because it's the norm, and this is what I think I'm noticing a lot more over more recent times, is that a lot of things that have been the norm are changing. And things are being challenged and scrutinized. And so you can see a lot of people really going through awkward periods where they're sort of trying to work out who they are and where they fit into the world, and things that they just thought were normal and they accepted aren't actually good things. And so suddenly a lot of people are defensive out there because they're thinking that they're being attacked themselves. And it's like, well, this is a time, it was actually quite positive and exciting because, we're actually identifying things that need to be improved. But, going back to that and sort of having like one woman quota as far as artist representation at Homebake, it's just, if you're a punter in the audience, you probably wouldn't be aware of it. You'd probably just go, there's a bunch of bands playing.
The call has always been, there's just not that many women playing music, which I remember being at the Oxford one night and I looked around and there was 7 female drummers that I was talking to. And I'm like, people say there's no female drummers. We're in Wollongong and there's 7 of us in the one spot, like just hanging out, having a chat. And like, we didn't organise it. We were just all there on the same night. And there was always things like Scooter up in Sydney, which was female and trans accepted lineups that they'd put on. And they were at the Erkinsville Hotel, I think it was, or the Imperial for a while, and then they had to move to a warehouse, sort of make it really DIY. Down in Melbourne, there's so many amazing female bands. Like, you look down there now and I think all the bands that I'm listening to from Melbourne at the moment have a big female lineup in them. So bands like Cable Ties, Mod Con, Moody Beaches, like these are impeccable musicians. Like Mod Con's got Erica Dunn from Harmony in it.
Yeah. It's good that there's awareness now, and I think on a larger scale, it's so much easier to find music these days as well. And so, you can, like, there's the argument about, not having the old school sort of CD and things like that, and a lot of stuff's online, but it's so much easier to discover music. And if you like one thing, it's a lot easier to find stuff that sounds similar as well.
Yeah.
So, in the past, it would have been, you very sort of had tunnel vision about the type of music that you like and the bands that you listen to, and there's sort of like this inner circle, and that's about it, because it's really based on word of mouth or utilizing forms of media that would only highlight certain things. But
yeah,
the
like there was
so
a lot
more
magazines and stuff back then, so you could read them, but they didn't always have a lot of females in it. What I was a massive fan of doing, I was a little bit of maybe a stalker to the musos that I absolutely loved. So I absolutely loved Magic Dirt. They were my favourite band since I was like 12. And I used to write to Ed Leader all the time. And then I would call up and pretend that I wanted to talk to their manager and stuff like that when they were at gigs and stuff. And so I'd have these conversations with Ed Leader, and she'd end up putting me on the door at gigs. I was underage, so if she could put me on the door, it meant I had a much better chance of getting into gigs. But I would go to so many gigs, Magic Dirt gigs, and I'd always get to have a chat with her. Like, she was great at coming out and hanging with the fans, like the true fans of the band. And I always would ask her every time I saw her, what are you listening to at the moment? And whoever she said, I would go and find them out. She put me onto bands like Paradise Motel, Atari Teenage Riot.
Wow.
Yeah, just like crazy stuff. Caius. And it was like, some had females in them, some didn't. Done the same thing with Nitocris. I got on with a film guy who used to do their live filming for some of their gigs, and we ended up getting him to do film clips for some of my band's film clips back when I was still at high school, so I was pretty young. So he got me up on as his assistant to some Nitocris shows. So I got to hang out with Nitocris, and I'd ask all them, what are you listed to? And so they'd tell me like what bands
the old school way.
Yeah, it was very DIY, but that's how I would find out, well, I love these bands. Where are they getting their influences from? And I guess not everyone can do that, but
But did you do a lot of that down here? Like, was it sort of Wollongong based where you sort of...
Well, I was in Berry at the time when I was growing up, so I actually had to travel further.
So what would you do? Like, just drive up or catch the old train and swap over?
Yeah, I'd usually catch the train. My bass player in my band, Medusa, was 2 years older than me, so she could drive from... probably... Yeah, she drove to a lot of the concerts for us. Sometimes my brother might drive me, or just, I had a few older friends, and sometimes I'd train it. Sometimes I was very fortunate that one of my cousins, Ben, he was a journalist for Rolling Stone, Juice magazine, and Recovery magazine in the 90s. So he lived he lived in Sydney, so I could stay with him sometimes. And also I'd done work experience there at those magazines. So I got to meet people like Tony Mott.
That's cool.
The amazing photographer. And he offered me, he doesn't really have many people come and do work experience for him, but I got chatting to him in an elevator.
The elevator pitch.
The elevator. Well, he was just like, because I was pointing out like the Magic Dirt photos and stuff when we were going through which ones we should print in the magazine for that month. And he loved what I was saying. He's like, do you want to come and do work experience with me next week? And I'm like, I would love to, but school won't let me have another week off, because I'd already been up there for 2 weeks. And I still think back and go, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I go and do work experience with Tony Mott? So that's maybe my big regret of my life.
Did you find that I mean, so I'm originally from Queensland and I moved to Sydney, I don't know, 15 odd years ago or whatever it was. But one thing that I noticed about here is because the guys in my band were living down here or had grown up here. So I got exposed to the Ox and a lot of sort of the Wollongong sort of local music scene. And over the years, been fortunate to play across the country and get an understanding of how different local music scenes are like. But Wollongong's just, I don't know, it feels like there's just everybody that's done anything has had some connection with Wollongong, either lived here or has cut their teeth here. There's just something about this area where there's just so many, it's like this magnet. I don't know what it is. Yeah. And maybe it's just because of my own journey and I've had a bit more exposure to the area than other people. But did you find that, like, I mean, even just the story you said before of being in the Ox and sort of looking around and seeing like 7 other female drummers, I don't think there's many other, I mean, yes, no doubt there's lots of people across the country doing similar stuff, but there's something weird about Wollongong and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the Oxford was a real mecca for us, and it was one of those, people always used to say, oh, there was always fights at the Oxford. There was never fights at the Oxford. The only time there was ever fights at the Oxford was when it was way back before I was even born. It was a really hard going pub. But during the 90s especially, there was never any fights except on footy night when footy would break. And then the footy sports people would come up and come into the Oxford because they'd see the goths and the metalheads and the sort of timid acoustic guys out, and they're just like, oh, let's go in and rough these guys up. And that was the only time there was ever a fight. But the Oxford was one of those places in Wollongong where the metalheads would come and support the acoustic players, and the acoustic players would go to the punk shows, and everyone supported everyone because you needed to have a crowd at your show. And so we all just would support everyone because we were like, well, we got to have, if we want this place to survive, we've got to support each other. And every, band might not be up your alley, but you loved the people in it.
That was one thing I noticed straight away is that, I would meet, like I'd have my friends that I've connected with through my own band and whatever it is, but then I would meet their extra circle, their outer circle of friends. And so suddenly, you got the local punk bands, you got the indie guys and everything like that. And suddenly, and I'd come from sort of this background where all my mates were metalheads. And so that's it. And then, and especially going through school, it's like you had that segregation. It's like the guys who liked Metallica and the guys who liked NoFX or the guys who liked whatever else. And so everyone had their little clique that they'd stick to. But that was one thing I definitely noticed down here. And, sitting out in the beer garden at the Ox with those giant fences and just going to like the fights thing. The only time I ever saw any sort of real confrontation was usually at the gate where the security guard was, and you had the glass house across the road, which is a completely different crowd of people.
Different.
And so you would just have every once in a while people walking past or something like that, and there'd be a bit of a confrontation at the entrance there. Yeah. But apart from that, it was a dingy place, and we played. I think we played there a couple of times, but it was just there was something very welcoming about the place. It was just
everyone had everyone's
refuge.
back, and it's interesting. Like Geelong was exactly the same for Melbourne, and when I started touring down to Melbourne, everyone who I started talking to because I liked their bands had the Geelong connection.
Right.
They all had come out of Geelong and moved to Melbourne at some point. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like Wollongong. And so everyone I met in Melbourne pretty much had come from Geelong because I met a couple of people and then they introduced me to their friends who they had met in Geelong. So you just end up with this massive Geelong connection. And yes, it was like the long and the gong. And I think it's that satellite city. Like you have to support the people in your community because it's smaller. You can't really pick and choose, and I think it made us grow more as musicians. It sort of opened our ears to hearing different sounds and different influences. We didn't write things off straight away. Like we sort of gave people, if we didn't like your band the first time we heard it, we wouldn't go, oh, we're never going to go see that band again, because sometimes you wanted to go to the local for a drink, and
That's
you might
right.
hear them again like a few months later and go, oh, they got some new songs, I don't mind them.
Yeah.
So you give them another chance, and yeah, I don't know, I think it was beneficial, and really, yeah, I know I bang on a lot about community, but that's what it was. So
I think having that venue, and then there was, there have been other venues that have popped up and disappeared over the years, but that having that venue there for that period of time certainly helped a lot.
Yeah.
And when you look at other larger towns or smaller cities in the country that have been a little bit more flash in the pan, that's something that's been missing. Whereas that consistent sort of hub where people can go to on a Friday or Saturday night or a night during the week, and you just know that you're going to bump into someone you know.
Yeah.
It becomes this social hub where you've got like-minded people, and through that, then ideas come, action comes, these things manifest out of this communal spot. And the biggest places where you don't have that is where they've lost that little meeting place, that corner pub or whatever it might be. So that's one thing that Wollongong certainly held on to. And I know now, like, the Ox is long gone, and places
we all
changed.
still remember it.
Well, that's it. Or still reflecting even now. But I mean, there's still other places around, and Servos opened up now, and so that's catering for a certain crowd as well. And
the Servo is great because it is one of the venues which has got diversified acts in there. So some nights they'll have comedy, they'll have folk, they'll have like heavy rock. They've got all different stuff going on. Like one of my friends just had a photography exhibition of her photos she took over in Africa.
Wow.
So there's all different things going on, and it's all ages. So I guess for the people who have come out of the Oxford, a lot of them now have kids, but they can come to the Servo shows with their kids. And sometimes there's daytime shows, sometimes there's nighttime shows. It is like a bit of a smaller venue. It has got a bit of a different vibe than the Oxford, but I think it is feeling that allowing different things to happen in the space. I think some venues, they go, oh, we only want to have this type of music, and it really narrows it down a little bit to what can be in there. But I don't know, like, I guess like that's got its bonuses as well. Like, if you're really into a sort of style of music, you can go there and you can get that. Yeah.
I think the Ox has sort of inspired a few places now that are still going or have opened up since then, where it might not be a centralized spot as it was in the past, and especially that location, it was like literally central in Wollongong.
Yeah.
But now there are a few places where there is a bit of versatility around what your options are and what you want to do. And so, like a lot of other places, there's nothing. There's no options whatsoever. The only live venue's gone, and it's just dried up. And so people are trying to convince a pub to clear the corner of a room and set up a really disgusting PA and acoustic PA, and just cross your fingers that the power works. But this area's certainly got places where there's a consistent presence of live music, which is good.
Yeah. I've got a couple of mates who play in a band called Dead.
Okay.
Jem and Jace, and they're just two-piece, drums, bass.
Wow.
Both sing, and they are heavy as all hell. They are so loud.
Is it like droney sort of sludge sort of stuff?
Yeah, drone, sludge. It's kind of a bit like Melvins-ish.
Cool.
Yeah. So heavy, but they love touring. One does illustrations, the other's a screen printer, so they do all their own artwork. They print their own shirts, they do all that, they organize their own gigs, and these are two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. They just have swags in the back of their van. They'll pull up on the side of a road and have a kip like in their swags, but they go to all the regional places. And I remember I was painting a mural in Wagga, and they just happened to have a gig in Wagga, and I was like, I wonder how Dead's gonna go in Wagga. And so where I was staying, it wasn't far from the venue, so I just walked down, and there was actually like a bunch of people there. Like, Wagga was excited that Dead had come to town, and they were playing on the floor, and they had Mo over from Mo's from Norway. another really, really heavy band. And I was just like, all right, well, people seem to be keen, but I wonder what the locals are going to think. And like some of them, you know, as soon as it started, got up, walked out. But yeah, sort of looking over at the bar staff, I was like, don't know if they're going to like be in for this every night. But it was, for somehow Jem and Jace managed to get these regional pubs to let them play and come in. And
that's exciting because it's sort of like the Wild West. It's just the wild sort of country where you just don't know what you're going to get. And we're lucky in Australian culture that every town has multiple pubs. So there's always going to be a corner of a room. It's really just convincing the publican to let you move a few chairs around. And a lot of them, they'll have their regular clientele, but there's probably not a lot on. There's probably not a lot of entertainment, especially in the regional areas. So they're probably just, as long as they're not having to fork out a lot of money, a lot of them are pretty keen to just let anybody have a go.
Yeah, just have something different on. And it's why I love painting in regional areas as well. Like I go and paint a wall out, somewhere that's, hasn't got much going on. Everyone wants to come and chat to you. Everyone wants to have a beer with you at the end of the day and hang out. And,
that's cool.
By the end of the week or two that you're there, everyone knows your name because they've either met you or they've read about you in the paper because the local paper's going to come and put you on the front page.
That's the good thing about regional press. It's like easy to get a story.
The amount of times I've been on the cover of a regional newspaper, I've got a bit of a back catalogue going. But it's the most exciting thing that's probably going to happen in their town or just something different. And but I love it. Like I love having one-on-one conversations with people more than big groups. And I find if I'm painting in a major city, it's just constant noise. It's constant people questions. And it's really hard just to get to know anyone. But I love, like in the regional towns, people don't have a problem with opening up about themselves and what their town's about instead of just asking
telling me this.
Like, I don't know. They love talking about themselves as much as they'll ask you questions. Whereas, in the cities, usually I just get question or just jokes like, oh, you missed a spot or, are you allowed to do this?
You just hand out like an FAQ card. I mean, you've been doing art for quite a few years, and I was saying to you before we started recording about sort of anything creative, music or in this case art, being sort of like the mechanism or the vessel to sort of put a message out there or communicate. Some people are good at just running their mouth and other people are good at doing other things. Has there ever been a method to the madness with your art in particular, as far as what you're trying to get out there, or is it just whatever's sort of coming through? Like, is there any sort of intentional thought? Is there messages? Is there anything that you're passionate about that you try to emulate through your art?
Yeah, there is. It really depends on what I'm working on. So, like with my gallery work, like artwork that is just my artwork that I want to do, it really stems from where I grew up in Maria Meadow. So a lot of it is based around that area. The fears that I had when I was a child. So I had like generalized anxiety disorder. I used to think the world was going to blow up and just sort of crazy things going on. Like my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 12 and she passed away when I was 17. So she had a lot of similar fears that I had as well. She never got on a plane. So getting on a plane for me, which was only a couple of years ago, was like a massive step. But we both had feelings of claustrophobia. Like we lived on this beautiful farming plain, but we could see places like Bomaderry creeping closer and closer. There's the lights coming towards us in the plane. And we were always really worried that our little house was going to sort of get surrounded and we were going to lose that. And like we were so lucky we had that, like, and people need somewhere to live. Like I completely understand that. But as a child, it was really sort of scary for me. So Yeah, I think like with my gallery work, a lot of it, I go back to that place and sort of work out those feelings, and it's really helped me with the anxiety that I've had, to sort of work out those sort of things. I love dealing with contrasts, like between young and old, light and dark, which hopefully comes through in my artwork, and the natural environment and the man-made environment. So yeah, all my gallery work sort of really stems from a really heartfelt, nostalgic past for me. Whereas when I paint murals in public spaces, I've usually have to go, well, what's going to work in this space? What does the community want? And it's listening to other people and what the environment is, what's going to work. What do I want to do as well? Like, I'm not going to just go and paint something. Like, if the community told me to paint a hamburger, I'm probably not going to paint a hamburger because I don't want to paint a hamburger. But, you know, in some sort of terms, you take on, you know, what the people want who are going to be looking at this. It's their wall that you're putting it on, really. It's their public space. So
Are they harder to do because you've got to get a little bit more outside feedback?
at the start, it definitely was, because I was really trying to get the jobs. So I was trying to just give people what they wanted. And at the end of the day, I wasn't happy with the artwork myself.
Yep.
But because that was the artwork that was coming out, that's sort of artwork that I kept getting booked for. And I kind of kept trying to angle jobs, like put in EOIs and stuff with sort of more my gallery artwork style on. And a lot of councils were going, oh, no, it's a bit dark.
Yeah.
But I hadn't done anything large scale, and I knew it wasn't going to come across exactly the same way as it does in the small gallery pieces. So I was really fortunate that a couple hit me up, Drew and Meredith, a couple of years ago, and they said, oh, we've got a big brick wall as our fence. And it was, I think, about 3 meters high. And they were like, oh, I would love you to paint a mural on it. I'm like, oh, okay. They're actually just a few blocks over from the studio. I'm like, oh, I'll come over and I'll check out the wall and we can discuss it. And so I went over, looked at the wall and went, oh, yeah, this is good wall.
It's a good wall.
Yeah, good wall. So what are you thinking you want painted on it? And they said, oh, here, we'll show you. So they got out their computer. I'm like, oh, I wonder, like, are they going to show me a Banksy or, you know, someone else's artwork and go, oh, can you paint this? And they went onto my own website and went to my gallery work. And they said, we love what you do with your screen printing and your spray paint works for the gallery. Can you do this on a wall? And I went, yes, this is what I've been trying to do. And so I'd done that, and as soon as I'd done that and started posting photos, people loved it. And then I started getting jobs in that style, and people like just requesting, can you do this? Can you do this? So I realized, man, why didn't I do this earlier? Just get a wall and do the style I want, because up until then, people only saw the style that I was creating for other people that I didn't really want to be doing. So the last couple of years, I've just sort of kept with that. I'm not painting things I don't want to do. I'm not applying for EOIs for things that I know aren't going to fit.
It's one of the, like, I know from my own experience trying to, like, if I need somebody to create a design for me, I struggle big time. I can't explain a visual, or I can't even get to a point where I can see a visual in my head. So I'm one of those, I would be one of those painful customers who doesn't know what they want. But then as soon as you start creating something, I'll tell you that it's not good, but I can't tell you how to improve it. So for me, one of the challenges that I have is I have to be more thoughtful about really sitting down and working out what I want before I start approaching people. And I assume that just hearing that, you know, people are only able to ask what they can see. And so if they're looking around town and seeing other people's murals or other designs, or seeing work that you've done that wasn't your style but you're doing for other people, then that's all they've got. So as soon as you're able to put other examples in front of them, people like me suddenly can see the opportunity, because we don't, I think for not most people, but I think for a lot of people, they can't see past, they can't see the possibilities. And so I think maybe it's on both sides of the fence, like people who are creative, being able to sort of really sort of paint a picture, to excuse a pun, but to be able to put something out there that people can, that spells out the possibilities.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the fence, being able to sort of really sort of sit down and work through the why and what we actually want and what sort of feeling are you trying to create, or what's the outcome. Because I think even for me, I sometimes go, I need a design.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there's no more thought than that. So, and then sometimes I'll never get it done because I can't get past just that part of it. So it's a big challenge. So just you explaining that, I can identify with that, because I understand that, a lot of people just wouldn't know what they want.
Yeah.
So you have to put it in front of them.
Yeah. And like one of the main councils who kept saying to me, oh no, like that style's going to be too dark to have in a public space. As soon as I'd done this wall for Drew and Meredith, I got a commission from them straight away, like to do a similar style, because they were like, we can see it now. Like we can see that there is like actually a lot of light and intrigue. A lot of people sort of liken it to Where the Wild Things Are, the artworks in that. So it has got that childlike kind of quality to it. It's not like dark and grim forest. It's actually quite enchanting. And they realise once it's large scale, that's what the feeling is.
And I think, like, even for me, with not talking about art, but even just trying to get an idea over the line and trying to convince somebody else, sometimes you have to actually sort of half execute an idea or create it in another setting to be able to demonstrate to somebody the possibilities, or to see that it actually exists. Because a lot of people they can't visualize it in their head. Or a lot of people are sort of pessimistic in nature, where they'll go to all the negatives to begin with. They won't look at the possibilities. And I know a lot of people, I mean, guys in my band, and you try and pitch an idea, and so sometimes they might lean towards all the things that are wrong with the idea instead of the positive aspects, the opportunities. And so sometimes the way to get an idea over the line and get people to buy in is that you have to create that visual. You have to sort of show or demonstrate an example of how this is already working. And then people can get past all the negativity or sort of downplaying something.
Like in the band, if some of us have a different idea of what should go where, or how we should, like, finish that section and move into, like, say we want to write a bridge, and people have different ideas, I'm always like the person going, well, let's try it everyone's way.
And then we can work it out afterwards.
Yeah, and then we can see which one works
Don't
the
jump
best.
the gun.
Because, sometimes, I'm sitting there behind the drums and it's like, no, this way, this way, this way. I'm like, why don't we just play it and listen to it? Like,
instead of like talking the hypotheticals and shutting things down. I'm a very visual person as well. So when I do murals, I always do a digital mock-up, so people get a really good visual sense. And it's time consuming, and sometimes you don't get the job and you're like, I spent a whole day working on that. But the ones that I do put a lot of time into, I'm pretty successful with getting, if my heart's really in it and I think it's gonna work. But they can see straight away. Like I just won an EOI to do a mural, and they called me, like the submissions were due on the Monday, and they called me on the Tuesday, and I'm like, oh, do you have a question about my application? They're like, oh no, you got it. And I'm like, well, you had to have a whole council meeting, and then you had to go and talk to the owner of the building. They're like, oh, we knew straight away we wanted yours. Oh. Like, because they just saw it and they saw the visual, and they were like, it was unanimous. Yep, that's what we want. And I'm like, okay, so that was worth it. I was up, because I'm renovating my house now at the moment. I was up Sunday night writing the application. I worked like Friday doing the digital concept, and I was so tired. Like, I haven't slept properly in the past 3 weeks. Like, you're sitting here looking at me probably going, you look like you're hungover. I am not. I didn't even have a beer last night. I just have not slept for 3 months. And I was like, if I don't get this, I'm going to be so upset. But I got it. And probably the comparison to other people that might be applying is that they may not have taken that extra step of providing, like, they may have explained what potentially they're going to do. But I don't know how it works. But
a lot of people would just do sketches and stuff. Like, I'm lucky because I've got the graphic design background. So I am able to sort of do a pretty good digital mock-up. But some people would do pencil drawings. Some people might do a little painting. Some people might just send in similar things that they might do or describe it. There's different ways different people go about it.
You got to get to that point where the person who's making the decision doesn't have to put a lot of energy into their own creative thought.
Yeah.
Like, as bad as it sounds, you don't want them to have to fill in the pieces themselves. You want to have to almost spell everything out to say this is more or less, or to the most part what it's going to potentially look like.
Yeah, but then if you miss the mark, like,
well, that's
you're out
there is a
straight
risk
away.
as well.
Like if they don't like something, it's kind of like you've given them, this is exactly what I'm going to do. And it kind of comes across like there's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
So sometimes they like an artist who might be like, oh yeah, like, yeah, we'll go talk to the community and see what they want to do and all of this, but then they can't really show what they're going to do because they've got to talk to the community. Yeah, so
always a challenge.
Yeah.
Do you still do exhibitions?
I still do exhibitions. I was pretty quiet this year, actually. And then I had an exhibition up in Sydney the week before last.
Yep.
It's a lino exhibition. So yeah, that was great because I hadn't done much lino work for a while. So it was nice to revisit that, and I made a new work for it, put in some older works that I sort of added some colour and things to. It was a small group show. And then I had another opening last week, which was Locals on Board at the Wollongong City Gallery, which had 198 artists all make work on a plywood board. So that opening was nuts. I think it was like 500 odd people there. It was really claustrophobic. The cheese was sweating. But no, it was fun. Like there was so many people there, and there's some amazing works. Like everyone, I think a lot of people went in like, I want to have the best work in this exhibition. So heaps of people like went in really strong with it. So yeah, there's some great pieces in there. And I feel like I've got something else coming up now. I can't remember. Oh gosh, my brain's a little fried. I've got one in Melbourne.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I think it opens just the start of December. It's at the Stockroom Gallery. So the Stockroom opened 3 years ago. Malika Davies and 23rd Key, who's a stencil artist.
Is that in the city itself, or is it?
Ringwood, and then they're opening a second gallery space now. I think it's Clifton Hill or Chifton Hill. So yeah, they're having a exhibition down there.
Cool.
I think work down for that.
I think I asked you in my self-starter podcast about sort of where all the business and everything's going, but I think from what I can remember, a lot of it's just sort of maintaining what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And one thing that I certainly get from what you do is that, yes, you've got this business, but you've also got your own art.
Yeah.
And you've still got music. Do you still play, as in a sort of band, and still do that?
Yeah. At the start of the year, I joined Baby Machine. So Baby Machine have been around for 19 years. Yeah. And for the past 14 years, I've been their roadie, lugging their stuff everywhere. But Beck, who's the singer and former drummer, she never really liked playing the drums. She's an amazing guitarist. But Baby Machine, when they first met, there were 3 bass players, so someone had to play drums and someone had to play guitar. Yeah. So they divvied up the instruments, and Beck got stuck with the drums, and she's been complaining ever since. So she decided that she just wanted to sing. She didn't want to drum anymore. And I was kind of like, hey, I like drumming and I'm here anyway. So
I'm part of the woodwork already.
Yeah. So I just have kind of slipped in. And
wow, cool.
Yeah, we've got quite different drumming styles. So it's been interesting, like playing Beck's beats, because we're still playing like a bunch of the old Baby Machine songs. We're starting to write a few new ones, which is fun. But yeah, trying to keep the feel that Baby Machine had and still add a little bit of myself in there. So yeah, a fair few good old Baby Machine fans from the past have said to me, oh, you've done a really good job keeping Beck's feel time and everything, but adding in your crazy fills,
Yeah,
like
cool.
just adding in some extra rolls and stuff, because I like sort of a bit more technical stuff. And Beck had this great way of playing, which has just made Baby Machine sound, where when she hits the snare, she doesn't actually hit the time on the hats or the rides. So she's sort of got this like slightly little swing kind of thing going on, and it's just sort of this constant bass thing that has gone all through Baby Machine. So I've had to learn how to do that, and it's really hard for me not to keep the time going consistently. But yeah, now I've mastered that. I find it hard to like play properly with the time. Yeah. But you know, it's that sort of thing with like Meg White in the White Stripes, where she's got her style of playing, and it's what makes the White Stripes great and gave them sound. Like if she was a really technical drummer, and then you've got Jack White being really technical on the guitar, they would sound completely different.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I didn't want to take that sound away from Baby Machine. So yeah, no, it's been fun, and like, you know, my partner's in the band and my two best friends are in the band. That's so cool. Yeah, it's and now I get to like set up the drums and play them. So
yeah, what torture just setting them up and having to walk away. It's like, I put so much effort into this drum kit and now I can't play it. Yeah, that's cool. I've seen that name around for so many years. Yeah, that's a band that's definitely been a part of the woodwork.
Part of the woodwork and part of the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's cool. Well, I mean, where I was going with that is just having to find the balance to be able to do everything. And I think that's what makes everything exciting and fun anyways, because you've always got something that you can lean on and engage in. And if something becomes a bit deflating or a bit taxing, you've got other things to keep you stimulated. So, you know, whether it be your own art or whether it be, you know, running this business and everything that you do in this business, which is already varied, and then having the music still going there as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice. I always looked, because like my partner's in Baby Machine, I always looked at her band going, you get to play with your two best friends, and that's amazing. And they have the gear set up, like Beck and Jack, who's in the band, they've got the gear set up at their house. They don't have to lug gear to a studio to rehearse and all that. And I was like, you've got the dream. We would have dinner after. And so I was always there anyway, like eating dinner or making dinner or whatever. I'm just like, oh, when I go to band practice, I've got to lug my stuff and then set it up and pay money. And then we're all sort of a bit, because we're tired after work. And, you know, like I get on with everyone who I played with, but it wasn't like we were best mates. Yeah. And it's a bit different. So yeah, now we have band practice and it's easy to just rock over. Well, actually, I'm living at the house now anyway, because my house has been renovated. So I've been living there for 3 months. Totally easy. Yeah, and it's chilling out. So it's what you just go and hang out with your mates after work. We're doing that, and we're playing, and we're eating some food, and we might have a beer or tea or like whatever we feel like. And yeah, it's part of the unwind. It's not add into the wind. So
there's so many bands would be envious of that sort of setup. I mean, you know, even for us now, you know, I think I'm right down the coast, Tim's around here, and then our drummer at the moment, because we've had a million drummers, we're very spinal tap these days, but he's in Stanmore, and then Mark, our guitarist, is I can never remember, but somewhere out towards Campbelltown. But we rehearse in Marrickville now. Yeah. And so, which is fine. I don't mind the drive or anything like that. But it's just the fact of you don't have a permanent spot. You don't have a headquarters, a HQ where everything's set up the way that you want it, and you've got the sound working that everybody's happy with. You're sort of walking into a new space all the time, having to sort of start from scratch. And as you said, like, you know, people have been working, or, you know, people are exhausted, and then having to set everything up and then go, all right, so now we're going to play something, okay? And then it gets to a point where you sort of go, let's just do the bare minimum and get the hell out of here, because you're just so exhausted by the whole process. So that's cool. I mean, that's a lot of musicians on their own, but definitely in a band setting would love to have that sort of setup. Yeah,
it's amazing. We have a lot of bands come up from Melbourne who we're friends with, and if they play in Wollongong, they'll usually stay at one of our houses, and every time they turn up to one of our houses because we've got the gardens and everything as well. They're just like, we want to move to Wollongong. And they like love it. They see our places.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they'll come down here, check out the studio, and they're like, what do you pay for this? Like, you're getting a month's rent for what we pay a week.
Yeah.
And then you take them into the mall, and then they're like, oh, okay, so this is the downfall. This is what makes Wollongong bad. And we're like, yeah.
Let me
And
show
then we
you the
take them out to
realities.
the beach and
Yeah.
up to the escarpment, and they completely forget about the mall. But yeah, it's amazing to be able to have that. And I think you can really only do that in places like Wollongong. It's pretty hard to have that sort of luxury of space and stuff in the city. But yeah, my old band, the What Right, two of us lived down here in Wollongong, and two of us were in Sydney. So we'd jam 1 week down here, 1 week up in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
And the singer was down here with me, and he had lost his license 3 times in a row. So I'd have to drive him everywhere, drive him to every gig, pick up his stuff, take my drums, drop him off. And then like we'd usually have, a gig up in Sydney at least, once a fortnight. So we were driving up for that. You could never have a drink or anything. Like, I don't like driving around Sydney at the best of times. And, you could have 1 beer, but I'm like, I don't want to risk it. Like the GPS bounces off all the buildings. It doesn't even tell you where to go properly. I remember one night we ended up in the Cross City Tunnel, and we're out at Drummoyne because we missed a turn off, and we're just like, oh, where are we?
Wrong direction.
But yeah, so you get no rider because they're drinking all the rider because I had to drive. And
I've certainly noticed that,
just
like living
lost the
down the
fun.
coast these days, like for the last few years, where definitely my alcohol consumption has definitely decreased significantly because I drive everywhere. But it's definitely a different dynamic now. So yeah, I'm not hanging around as long after shows. Like I'm pretty much, once we're done, I'm out. And we're luckily, I mean, I'm not one of those bands where you be playing early in the night and then be that asshole that leaves early.
Yeah.
But we're lucky that we're playing last, which is good and bad because you're usually exhausted, especially if you're not drinking and you're not distracted by the social setting, and so you know that you've got to drive. But yeah, as soon as we're done, we packed up. It's like, all right, I'm out of here, guys. I'm bailing. I can't sit around and socialize because I can't relax. Like I know that I've got that drive ahead. Yeah. But and there's pros and cons. There's definitely a lot of pros to that sort of dynamic and on that sort of set of circumstances, and no doubt that'll change again, and then I'll have to get used to watching how much I drink before I play. And
if you're moving back to Sydney.
That's right, absolutely. Well, I could definitely keep talking for ages. I've got a bunch of things I haven't even touched on, but we'll wrap it up there. But thank you so much.
Oh, I just realised that I never actually answered one of your questions, the Poncho Army name.
Oh yeah, that might help. Yeah.
It's nothing.
Oh.
I know people are so distraught. When I was at uni, we had to come up with our portfolio and make a website.
Yeah.
So you could either use your real name or have a pseudonym. And I was like, well, I want to get a pseudonym. I don't want to use my real name. And so because I had to get a domain name, I literally just sat on a domain registry putting 2 words together because I couldn't. I think I had a few that were 1 word and everything was taken to get a .com for. So I just started putting words together, and I was like thinking like along the lines of Mod Honey, Sonic Youth, all these sort of bands that I loved. So I just started putting words together, and Poncho Army was available, and I went, bye. So I've just been stuck with it since now 2001.
And everyone's looking for this deep meaning of what it connects to. And
people are always like, your artwork, it's like
it was
so
just a domain
thoughtful.
generator.
And
Like,
I'm
just
like,
do
the
this.
name means nothing.
Well, I mean, that's cool. It's sort of like art in general where, whether depending on, or regardless of the message behind the art, a lot of art's open to interpretation. So it's what people get out of it. So while you didn't put any meaning behind the name itself, I mean, there is still a story, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I could totally lie and I could make up an amazing meaning. Like my dad was in the army and he did go to Vietnam. So I could like probably link the army part to that. I could probably link the poncho part to being a bit of an introvert.
Absolutely.
And
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I know. This is, people think the name means something because of who I am. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just bullshitting. like my dad seriously did go to Vietnam and was in the army, and pretty much like my granddad and great grand uncles were in World War II and all of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was just sitting on a domain registry waiting for something to be available.
Why not? I think there's a bit of charm to that as well.
Maybe it was subconsciously had a meaning. Who knows?
Well, remember your marketing background. So even that story alone shows the genuine nature behind you and everything you do. That's authenticity in itself.
Yeah.
So
if it's bullshit, I'll call myself out on it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, until next time.
Yep.
Thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Trina. If you want to reach out to her, check out her artwork or studio, you can go to ponchoarmy.com or you can go to anchorsawayartstudio.com. I'll also have the Facebook and Instagram links and all that stuff over in the show notes over at andysocial.net, or if you click through your podcast player into the show notes, there should be a bunch of clickable links there as well. Also recommend checking out the episode from the Self-Starter podcast, episode 25, where we focused more on Anchors Away Art Studio. Slightly different format, different perspective. So if you enjoyed this chat, and you want a little bit more, go and check that out. Episode 25, selfstarter.com.au, or you can search for it through your podcast player. Alrighty, before we wrap this one up, a few quick updates. Self-Starter is wrapping up for 2018. That's right. Season 1 is, well, by the time this episode comes out, it should be done. If it's not, spoiler alert, I'm wrapping it up for season 1, and I'm going to be taking a break from the podcast for around maybe 3 to 6 months. That's a very big window there, but I haven't quite worked it out yet. But season 2 will kick back in sometime in 2019. But the reason why I'm doing that, well, there's a whole range of different reasons, and there will be a final episode of season 1 of Self-Starter that will explain all of this. So I won't go into too much detail, but I really want to challenge myself with upping the blog content, the written content on selfstarter.com.au. I think there's a lot of really interesting information and valuable information that was discussed in all of the episodes that could become really, really cool blog posts for people to learn and continue to get really insightful information to help them on their own self-employment journey. So I'm going to challenge myself and see if I can hit some stretch goals when it comes to written content on that website. And I just want to take a step back and reflect on what the last 12 months has been for Self-Starter, because I've achieved quite a bit. Got some podcast award nominations. I'm in the National Sound Archive now because of Self-Starter. Got a lot of press as well. So there's a lot of newspapers and radio and things like that have covered what I've been doing with Self-Starter. So it's just been a really successful 12 months for me, and I'm really happy with what I've done. And I think over the next coming months, I'm going to really strategize how season 2 is going to look and also any additional things that I'm going to attach to the Self-Starter brand as well. I'm really, really passionate about it, and I want to make sure that this has longevity and I can continue to evolve on the concept that I've already created. So a lot of fun and exciting stuff, and it'll just ensure that, all this stuff continues to move in the way that it should. And it will not impact Andy Social in any particular way. Andy Social will be week to week, as it always has been. I love doing this, and you guys know that I've gotten so much out of this podcast over the last 3 years. I've spoken to some amazing people and learnt a lot about myself and the world around me by talking to lots of different people. So it's been really, really rewarding for me, and hopefully you guys have gotten something out of this as well. Final update, Lord. I don't think there's going to be an announcement by the time this episode comes out. I'm recording this a couple of weeks beforehand. But who knows, maybe. So I've thrown a few spoilers out there on previous episodes, so go back and listen to the last few weeks. Maybe there might be something in there, a little nugget of information that you might find interesting. But hopefully we'll have some information out soon. We might drop a song really, really soon, and maybe a video as well. And then album will be out in the not too far distant future. I promise it is almost done. I'm listening to final mixes now of the album. So we're almost there, folks, but we've just got to make sure we're so close, but we just don't want to rush it and end up putting out something or putting it out in a manner that we're going to regret. So we've got to do it properly. So if it means that we just have to painstakingly take our time and do it right, then that's what we've got to do. But we're almost there, and continue to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the band as well, and you'll see all the updates as they come out. But I'll keep you guys informed via the podcast as well. But that's it, folks. Another episode done, another week done. We're almost at the end of 2018. A few more guests and episodes before we wrap up this year, but we're going to end on a high note this year with some really, really cool people that I'm chatting to, and I look forward to sharing them all with you in the coming weeks. Until then, folks, take care and ta-ta.